Happy Saturday, guys. I don't know if it's such a happy day for a lot of people because the markets are down quite a bit. So I wanted to make this quick update on the Bitcoin market, on the charts, and what I think the situation is right now. So let's dive straight into it, okay? The market cap is back down to $1.7 trillion. So this is down almost by 50% from the all-time highs. Bitcoin is currently just under $36,000, so it is almost down 50% from the all-time high at 69,000. And obviously you can see there's a lot of red in the markets right now. So let's head over to the charts and let's have a look at what I think is happening. So obviously Bitcoin has dropped, and it has dropped pretty sharply, especially in the last day or two where we tried to get above $43,000 again. It didn't work, and since then it's just kind of been in free fall. Now, there is a few parts what is happening, why I think this is happening, of course. And firstly, it was already in the charts. So when we got the weekly close below the 50-week moving average, that was a signal that we could potentially be heading a lot lower down towards the 200 moving average. And I did make videos about this ahead of time. This was already showing in the charts as a possibility. So you can see early in December, I made this video over here. The weekly level must hold or else potentially bear market. And this is where I outlined that, in the last 8 or 9 years in Bitcoin's history, every time we got a weekly close below the 50-week moving average, there was a tendency for further sell-offs. Actually, 3 out of the 4 times we went below the 50, we ended up going back to the 200. And that is currently what is happening. This is on track right now. Now, of course, at any point it could reverse and could go back up. But so far, that signal has proven to once again be reliable, right? We couldn't get below it over here in May last year, and the market bounced. Now, this time when we got below it and we got a full weekly close, below it, even here, it was kind of hinting at it. We tried to save it, right? They tried to get above it with the green there, got another red. And actually over here, this was basically an indication that we could be going lower. Of course, there's always other things you need to look at in combination. It's very easy to say that in hindsight, but I did share this video multiple times. I talked about this average multiple times before it happened. Now it's happening. So what is happening now, and where do we go from here? Well, it is important to understand that the Bitcoin market is also very tied to the stock market. And right now the stock market is down. Let's go have a look at that. Now, this is the S&P 500. You can see there has been a big sell-off actually the last week, but even before that it started a little bit. Now what we have here is we're back to the 50-week moving average, which hasn't been tested really since about the March 2020 sell-off. Obviously with the global health crisis, and that had a big black swan event where we went to the 50-week moving average and then it dropped a lot lower. Now we're approaching that 50-week moving average on the S&P 500. I don't want to get too much into stocks and equities, but basically we've had the largest bull run in history since 2008. We haven't really had a bear market. So far over the years, every single dip, every single correction, even this big one in March 2020 was saved. There was more stimulus, more money being injected into the system, and the market ended up rallying every time after a dip, going to new highs. So the question is going to be, what is going to happen now? Is this going to be another one of these situations where even if it does dip a bit more, even if it does go back to the 200-week moving average over here, does it get bought back up again? Or is this time really where we're in for a bear market in the stock market? That is obviously something that remains to be seen. So far, the pattern has been every time it dumps, new stimulus, more money injected, and it continues going higher. But of course, that can't continue into infinity. So Bitcoin is, and obviously as a result, altcoins are tied to Bitcoin. Bitcoin largely follows the stock market. So what is going to happen with crypto and with Bitcoin is largely dependent on what is going to happen with the stock market. If the stock market is going to sell off further, which is of course a possibility, then it's likely Bitcoin and altcoins are going to sell off even more, initially at least anyway. It is possible that even if the stock market sells off, Bitcoin and crypto initially sell off and then they decouple, and maybe Bitcoin starts a rally while the stock market is still going down. Similar in a way like it happened with gold after the 2008 crash, where initially it sold off, then decoupled, and gold had a massive rally. That is a possibility for Bitcoin in future. But in the short term, whatever happens, if the stock market sells off, it is very likely Bitcoin and crypto is going to follow that. So all eyes on the stock market, and you can change this to a daily chart too, where we can see it is actually on the 200 daily moving average. Same way, it hasn't been tested since that sell-off in March 2020, and then when we broke below it, well, we had a little bit of a bounce back above it, and then it sold off massively. So we're slightly below that 200-day moving average. It's possible it bounces a little bit, but if this doesn't hold, there's a potential for further sell-off, which would mean likely further sell-off in Bitcoin and crypto. So let's go back to the Bitcoin market. So you can see over here, we are basically here below this 50-week moving average. And this is, in a very simple way, if you have to explain to someone, bullish and bearish trends. Above the 50-week moving average is bullish. Below the 50-week moving average is bearish. In simple terms, of course, you can zoom in on lower time frames. You can look at other indicators. But basically, the whole 2017 bull run, we were above the 50-week moving average. The whole bear market, basically from May 2018 all the way till we started a run back up again, we were below it, right? In the same way that the whole bull run since May 2020, we were above the 50-week moving average. May we held it, and now we are below it. So until we reclaim that, the trend is bearish, and that is basically what the chart is telling us. As much as, we'd all like the market to just continue going up, the reality is right now we are below this 50-week moving average, and until we can get back above it, I would personally be very cautious about being bullish on crypto. And of course, what is good for Bitcoin is good for the whole altcoin market. So as long as Bitcoin is trending lower, alts are likely to follow it. And remember, with altcoins, they outperform Bitcoin to the upside, but also to the downside, meaning that if we are going to go lower with Bitcoin, it is likely that altcoins are going to drop more as a percentage than Bitcoin actually will. So be very careful with which altcoins you hold. In the long term, keep in mind also that not all altcoins are going to recover again. While it's very likely that even if Bitcoin drops to 30 or 20,000 or whatever the case is, at some point Bitcoin is likely to recover again in future, as it always has. But with a lot of these altcoins, and there are thousands of them, it is not necessarily guaranteed that they will ever recover again if they have large drawdowns of 90% or more. So you want to be, of course, very careful with that. Now, how low could it go? Well, basically the 200-week moving average has provided support for the ultimate capitulations in Bitcoin. You can see the 2018 bear market over here, support on the 200-week moving average. Even the March 2020 sell-off, it wicked below there a little bit, but it provided support and it bounced, right? So in a worst case extreme sell-off, if the stock market sells off and things like that, basically this level is what I'd be looking at for support. Now it could wick below it a little bit like we saw in March 2020, but keep in mind this level is currently at also the all-time high of the 2017 bull run. So I would say there is very strong support at this 200-week moving average, which is also the previous high. So I don't know if it gets that low. Of course, we've been trending lower without much of a bounce, really. So it depends on the stock market. If the stock market is going to continue to sell off, maybe we just dump straight to this 200-week moving average. But, if the stock market recovers and the market recovers, that's possible we can bounce a little bit more. But until we reclaim this 50-week moving average, I would be more cautious in calling any sort of short-term reversal. Now, of course, one thing that you can also look at is the 50-day moving average. So that's a bit of a lower time frame, and that is a bit of a shorter-term reversal. So I like to watch both the 50-day moving average and the 50-week moving average. So if we change it to the daily, you can see over here also when it lost the daily over here, it's kind of been down since that point, really, since about 57. The problem with the 50-day moving average is on a shorter time frame, which means sometimes there's fake outs, right? So like over here, when it dropped below it, it faked out above it, and then it dropped. And over here, faked out below it, and then it went higher. But in general, this in combination with other indicators, in combination with looking at the 50-week moving average, gives you a good general idea of whether the trend is bullish or bearish. And basically above the 50-day and the 50-week moving average is bullish. Below it, well, that's the opposite, and it is bearish. And then you should be looking for failures on bounces rather than trying to buy every dip, because it can keep dipping for a long time. So until we get back above the 50-day moving average and the 50-week moving average, be very cautious with kind of buying the dip and claiming that the bull market is back and that sort of thing. The trend is your friend, and basically look at what the charts tell us rather than what we are biased to believe. Now, of course, I am very bullish still long term on crypto, on Bitcoin and a lot of altcoins, but in the short term, it is still possible that we go lower. So be careful with this. I mean, we had the May 2021 lows, so it's possible we get support there around 30,000 or 28,000, but it's also possible we go slightly below that, or maybe the 200-week moving average. So what I just want to say here is basically what I've explained in this video. The trend is your friend. Right now, things are not looking too good, and it's a dangerous thing to try and catch a falling knife, because even if you think this is the bottom and you try and buy the bottom, I mean, if it drops another 30, 40, 50% or more, then obviously it's not going to be very good. So personally, my strategy, in my opinion, is wait for a reclaim of the 50-day moving average and the 50-week moving average before getting exceptionally bullish, or simply be patient and wait for a real capitulation back to this 200-week moving average. Because you can see, if you would have bought back here in late 2018 around that 200-week moving average, or you would have bought the lows of the crash in 2020, in the months, in the year or 2 years that followed that point, the gains were exceptional, right? So I think this time will be no different. I think once we get to that 200-week moving average, very likely going to end up being a very good buying opportunity. Of course, not financial advice. You have to look at the market conditions in general. There's no guarantees with anything. But if we look at past performance, it seems to be a good historic buying opportunity. So hopefully you enjoyed this update. Please smash the like button. Again, long-term bullish on crypto, long-term bullish on digital assets. But in the short term, be careful with this. Just manage your risk. Do not overextend. Do not play with leverage. Avoid the shit coins, avoid the meme coins. And that way you set yourself up for much better success at navigating this, okay? If you have any questions, of course, I would be happy to have a look. Let us know down in the comments below. What do you think? How low are we going to go? How are you feeling right now? Are you worried? Are you not worried about this? Are you well positioned? Are you not? And of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Get on my email list. It's the first link in the description down below. And I will see you in the next video.